coming out of this testimony today. What does the president have, or does he have anything recorded that sort of backs up his version of events in some of these meetings with the former FBI director?
Jeff, thanks very much. As we continue to wait for the question part of the news conference, let's have a look now from yesterday at part of what James Comey had to say.
The administration then chose to defame me and, more importantly, the FBI by saying that the organization was in disarray, that it was poorly led, that the workforce had lost confidence in its leader. Those were lies, plain and simple.
Do you believe the Russia investigation played a role?
And why I was fired?
Yes.
Yes, because I've seen the president say so.
Do you sense that the president was trying to obstruct justice?
I took it as a very disturbing thing, very concerning, but that's a conclusion I'm sure the special counsel will work towards to try and understand.
He did not direct you to let it go.
Not in his words, no. The reason I keep saying his words is I took it as a direction. I mean, this is the president of the United States with me alone saying, I hope this. I took it as this is what he wants me to do. Now, I didn't obey that, but that's the way I took it.
You may have taken it.
And that was yesterday, the former FBI Director James Comey speaking to the Senate Intelligence Committee. Let me bring Nancy Cordes back into the conversation. She was there all day yesterday. Nancy, we talked about the special counsel investigation, which is proceeding into all of this, but the Senate Intelligence Committee is going to continue with its investigation. Where does that go from here?
Well, aides tell me that Comey's testimony is something of a turning point in this investigation. They feel that his high-profile appearance yesterday is going to prompt more officials, current and former, from the administration to go before the committee as well. And they say that we can expect to see a speeding up, not just of hearings, but also evidence collection as well. Keep in mind that this question of obstruction of justice that we're now focused on and the committee has been riveted by for the past month or so is not really the main focus of this committee's investigation. They are looking primarily at the bigger picture of Russia's interference in the U.S. election and whether anyone here in the U.S. helped Russia achieve its goals. And so while they are now focused on the possibility that the president may have fired the FBI director because of his handling of the Russia investigation, what they really want to get at is how this fits in to the bigger question of Russian interference. That is something that everyone would like to see completed. And as Comey indicated yesterday, the president, perhaps more than anyone, wants to see these investigations wrapped up. But the Senate Intelligence Committee can't really work faster than the FBI and the special counsel are working because the criminal branch has access to information that senators simply don't have. And sometimes they have to wait until it's gathered by the special counsel before they can get their hands on it. So it's a delicate dance going on here between the Department of Justice and Congress, and they have to actually meet regularly, Scott, to make sure that they're not interfering with the other investigation. That's what makes this so tricky.
Nancy Cordes, thank you. I want to remind you we're on the air right now because in just a couple of minutes, the president is going to begin taking questions, and we expect those questions to center on the investigation of his campaign, his administration, and now his conduct in the Oval Office. John Dickerson is our chief Washington correspondent and, of course, the anchor on Face the Nation. John, one thing is for sure. Somebody is lying. The president says it's Comey. Comey says it's the president.
Well, that's exactly right. And this gets back to the central question, which this is a test of two characters and who people believe in this. And it'll be interesting to see if in today's remarks the president continues that fight. He basically called Mr. Comey a liar this morning. Will he continue to prosecute that, or will he move on? Also, of course, you have the president's lawyer who yesterday not only said he was not telling the truth, former Director Comey, but also put him in the kind of cast of people who are trying to take down this administration. He talked about within the government, a group that is working against President Trump, and put James Comey as a leaker in that grouping. So this is a continued campaign to tear down the credibility of James Comey. And the question is, does that continue and pursue? Or does the president today decide to just move on from that, be presidential in the Rose Garden there. And that'll be interesting to see which way he chooses to go today.
Now, the documents that Comey leaked were his own notes, which were unclassified, had no secret information in them that we are aware of. Does that make a difference?
Well, it does make a difference in terms of this question of his character. If he was just relating private conversations, he did it anonymously. That's something that people might think isn't straight shooting, although he explained yesterday he did that because he thought if he did it himself, reporters would never leave him alone. But there's nothing that I've read or heard from legal experts that suggests there was anything wrong with turning over the information. Former Director Comey was quite clear in testimony yesterday that these memos that he wrote and then handed over to his friend to pass on, that he made sure there was nothing classified in them. So that he wouldn't run into any problems if, in fact, the information got out.
In fact, what he said yesterday was giving information to reporters is like feeding seagulls at the beach. We have our eagle on Capitol Hill, Nancy Cordes, with us as well. Nancy, how did GOP senators react to this idea that Comey had leaked information?
Interestingly, Scott, they were not really up in arms about it. It is what the president's private lawyer has really chosen to focus on, and the president tweeted about it as well this morning. But lawmakers, by and large, seem to take it at face value. And one GOP aide explained to me later that they didn't really feel that Comey is in any jeopardy for what he did, because after all, he was merely sharing his side of conversations that the president himself has talked about publicly, has tweeted about, has even threatened to release tapes that include the content of those conversations. So they're saying the president can't very well exert executive privilege over these conversations and say Comey can't talk about them when the president himself is discussing them openly.
Now, what we're seeing here is the Rose Garden. The Romanian president, Klaus Iohannis, is making his opening remarks, and if this goes the way these things usually do, what will happen is after his remarks here in another minute or two, the floor will be opened up to reporters for questions, and that is what we are awaiting at this point. The president undoubtedly going to be asked about his tweet this morning in which he called the former FBI director, James Comey, the man that he fired, essentially a liar and a leaker of information in a way that is, in the president's view, improper.
Due to your strong leadership, NATO...
Jeff Pegues has been following the legal aspects of all of this. And Jeff, what are some of the legal issues that these tweets bring up?
Well, what I think is interesting, Scott, if you look over the course of the administration, the 140 or so days that President Trump has been in office, every time he tweets, every time he makes a statement about Russia, in a lot of ways, it opens up more avenues of investigation for the FBI and others looking into this. If you look at the wiretapping claim of Trump Tower, if you look at the tweet referring to tapes, recordings, if you look at the tweet today, even calling James Comey a liar, in a way, every time the president tweets about this issue or addresses this issue, it just increases the pressure on the White House to respond in some way.
Jeff, thank you very much. John Dickerson, we have a special counsel investigation, a Senate investigation, the FBI investigation. How long is this going to dog the Trump administration?
We don't know. I mean, in talking to members of the Senate Intelligence Committee, the primary thing that comes across to me in these conversations is they say, it just keeps kind of getting bigger. I mean, so as Nancy pointed out, this started out as a question of collusion between the Trump campaign and Russians meddling in the election. Now it has grown into something bigger about the question of the president's attempt to influence the investigation. So it is getting bigger, and it can take some time. As Nancy also pointed out, there's that dance steps. The investigative committees have to make sure they're not getting in the way of the special counsel, and so they sometimes have to wait to get this information in the right sequence. So it could take quite a long time. The real, of course, thing to wait for is what the special counsel brings forward, because that has the weight as opposed to everything in between, which is speculation and anonymous sourcing. That isn't to say that won't bedevil the presidency and the White House, but really everything is speculation until the special counsel comes forward with his final report, and that could be quite a long ways away.
Now, let's go live to the Rose Garden where the president is standing next to the president of Romania. The Romanian president is wrapping up his remarks. If this proceeds the way it normally does, there will be questions invited from the American press and the traveling Romanian press as well. Probably 3 questions for each side, but President Trump tends to wing these things and to have them his way, and so we don't quite know which way this will go, but that is what we would typically expect. The president met with the president of Romania earlier today, talked mostly about security issues. Romania, as we said, is a NATO country. They have recently pledged to fulfill what President Trump has asked for, and that is that each and every NATO country spend 2% of its gross domestic product on defense and on the alliance.
Thank you so much, President Trump.
Thank you. Dave Boyer, Washington Times, please. Dave.
Thank you.
Come on, Dave.
Thank you, Mr. President. Apologies.
That's all right, Dave.
Mr. President, this morning on Twitter, you were referring to the testimony of James Comey vindicating you. But I wondered if you could tell us in person, sir, why you feel that his testimony vindicated you when it's really boils down to his word against your word. And if you could also tell us, sir, do tapes exist of your conversations with him?
Well, I'll tell you about that maybe sometime in the very near future. But in the meantime, no collusion, no obstruction. He's a leaker. But we want to get back to running our great country. Jobs, trade deficits, we want them to disappear fast. North Korea, big problem. Middle East, a big problem. So that's what I am focused on. That's what I have been focused on. But yesterday showed no collusion, no obstruction. We are doing really well. That was an excuse by the Democrats who lost an election that some people think they shouldn't have lost, because it's almost impossible for the Democrats to lose the Electoral College, as you know. You have to run up the whole East Coast and you have to win everything as a Republican, and that's just what we did. So it was just an excuse, but we were very, very happy. And frankly, James Comey confirmed a lot of what I said, and some of the things that he said just weren't true. Thank you very much. Do you have a question?
Thank you. And Mr. President, if you could tell us, a couple weeks ago, President Trump was in Brussels at the NATO meeting, and not only was he encouraging NATO members to pay up the 2% required of GDP for national defense, but he also was saying that countries, even including yours, who had not paid 2% in the past, should make up for that difference. Do you think that's fair?
I was in Brussels and I met President Trump and I listened to his speech and I liked it. Because you see, NATO is based on values, but it is ultimately a military alliance. And you know, military spendings are complicated and you need a lot of money, because NATO is the strongest alliance the earth ever saw, and we want to keep it that way. So we have to spend money for defense purposes. And spending money means if you're in alliance, everybody has to spend money. This is called burden sharing. And I fully agree, Mr. President, to that. So of course, some people liked this better and some didn't like it so much, but it's a simple fact that we have to do this, not as a purpose in itself. We have to do this to stay strong, to be strong, and to defend our nations.
100% correct. And, one of the things I was referring to during that speech was the fact that, yes, they haven't paid what they should be paying now, but for many years they haven't been paying. So I said, do we ever go back and say, how about paying the money from many, many years past? Now, I know no president has ever asked that question, but I do. We're going to make NATO very strong. You need the money to make it strong. You can't just do what we've been doing in the past. So I did say, yes, you haven't paid this year, but what about the past years, the many past years where you haven't paid? Perhaps you should pay some or all of that money back. You have a question?
Thank you. I have a question for President Trump. On the matter of security, sir, many of the countries on the eastern flank of NATO, including Romania, see Russia as a threat to the security and the peace in the region. Do you share this vision, and do you think that United States should act under Article 5 if any of this country will be under military aggression? Thank you very much.
Well, I'm committing the United States and have committed, but I'm committing the United States to Article 5. And certainly we are there to protect. And that's one of the reasons that I want people to make sure we have a very, very strong force by paying the kind of money necessary to have that force. But yes, absolutely, I'd be committed to Article 5.
Thank you, Mr. President. Were there any discussion about the visa waiver program for Romania? Is there a time frame for including our country in this program? Thank you.
We didn't discuss it. We didn't discuss it, but there would be it would be something we will discuss, Mr. President.
I mentioned this issue, and I also mentioned it during other meetings I had, because this is important for us, it's important for Romanians who want to come to the United States. And you see, more and more people come, President Trump, from Romania to the United States. Some come as tourists, some come for business, and those who come for business should be encouraged. So the matter of visa waiver would be probably important to discuss, and we all hope that we will advance on this.
Good. Oh, I look at those hands up there, President. Do you have this in Romania too? I don't know.
Yeah, I got the microphone.
Oh, boy.
If you allow me,
if I could only sell that. If I could only sell it. Who would like to ask? Should I take one of the killer networks that treat me so badly as fake news? Should I do that? Huh? Go ahead, John. Be fair, John.
Oh, absolutely.
Remember how nice you used to be before I ran? Such a nice man.
Always fair. Mr. President, I want to get back to James Comey's testimony. You suggested he didn't tell the truth in everything he said. He did say under oath that you told him to let the Flynn, you said you hoped the Flynn investigation, you could let...
I didn't say that.
So he lied about that.
Well, I didn't say that. I mean, I will tell you, I didn't say that.
And did he ask you to pledge his
And there'd be nothing wrong if I did say it, according to everybody that I've read today, but I did not say that.
And did he ask for a pledge of loyalty from you? That's another thing he said.
No, he did not.
So he said those things under oath. Would you be willing to speak under oath to give your version of
100%. I didn't say under oath. I hardly know the man. I'm not going to say, I want you to pledge allegiance. Who would do that? Who would ask a man to pledge allegiance under oath? I mean, think of it. I hardly know the man. It doesn't make sense. No, I didn't say that, and I didn't say the other.
So if Robert Mueller wanted to speak with you about that,
I would be glad to tell him exactly what I just told you, John.
And you seem to be hinting that there are recordings of those conversations.
I'm not hinting anything. I'll tell you about it over a very short period of time. Okay? Okay. Do you have a question here?
When will you tell us about the recordings?
Over a fairly short period of time.
Are there tapes, sir?
Oh, you're going to be very disappointed when you hear the answer. Don't worry. John, do you have a question for the president?
Yes. Thank you. And President Yohannes, you are no stranger to Russian aggression. Vladimir Putin recently suggested that Romania could be in Russia's crosshairs. How concerned should the world be about Russian aggression in your region? And how concerned should we be here in the United States about what Russia tried to do in our election, sir?
Everybody's concerned. But you see, being concerned should lead you to being prepared. So in my opinion, we have to be very clear, very simple, and very straightforward if we talk about Russia and with Russia. In my opinion, we need dialogue. But on the other hand, we need what we all together decided in NATO, a strong deterrence. So this combination, strong deterrence and dialogue, should lead towards a solution which is feasible for every part. Domnul Pantazi.
Hello, Mr. President Trump. You mentioned earlier the anti-corruption fight in Romania. It is a matter of high importance in our country, but we see now that the anti-corruption fight and the efforts to consolidate the rule of law are sometimes undermined by some politicians, part of what we can call the Bucharest swamp. Is your administration going to support the anti-corruption fight in Romania, and how can you do it? Thank you.
Well, we support very strongly Romania, and therefore, obviously, we do support that fight on anti-corruption. We will always support that, and we support your president. We think he's done an outstanding job, very popular, very solid, working very hard. We know everything that's going on, and and he's going to win that fight. He's going to win that battle, but he has our support.
Romania as a problem for the US-Romania partnership and for the American investor as a threat, because we still have corruption in Romania despite this anti-corruption fight.
Well, you do, but I can tell you that there are many American investors right now going to Romania and investing. In fact, I was given a chart just before our meeting, and we have people going over to Romania and investing, and they weren't doing that a number of years ago. So that shows very, very big progress, and there really are a lot of congratulations in store. But a lot of people are investing from our country to yours, and people love from Romania the United States, and they come here a lot, and we're very proud of them. Thank you all very much. Thank you. Thank you very much.
So, live with the president of Romania, the president just directly refuted the sworn testimony of James Comey. The president said that he did not ask for Comey's loyalty and did not ask Comey to let go of the investigation of former National Security Advisor Michael Flynn. He also said that he